Have you ever lost everything you thought defined you? The job, the woman, the dream you built your identity around. It feels like the universe ripped the ground from beneath your feet, leaving nothing but silence and shame. But what if I told you that was the moment you were finally free? Because when you lose everything, there's nothing left to protect, only the truth of who you really are. This is where most men break. But the wise man, he begins. He didn't see it coming. One day he had it all: stability, status, a woman who swore she'd never leave. And then, like a storm that offers no warning, it all vanished. His inbox emptied, his phone stopped ringing, and the warmth in her eyes turned to distance. The silence that followed was deafening. For weeks he fought it, trying to rebuild, to force life back into what was already dead. But the harder he tried to cling, the more it slipped away. Until one night, sitting alone in his small apartment, he stopped resisting. He just sat there. No music, no distractions, just the hum of the fridge and the ache in his chest. And for the first time, he felt everything. The loss, the anger, the confusion. But beneath it all, something else. A strange sense of stillness. It was in that stillness he realized something powerful. He had been living for everything outside himself. Every decision, every dream was built on what others would think. He wasn't living, he was performing. And now that the stage was gone, all that remained was him. That night, he whispered to himself, "Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe this is where I finally meet the man I was meant to become." The next morning wasn't a grand awakening. It was quiet. No lightning bolt of motivation, no cinematic music. Just a man, tired but breathing, deciding to take one small step. He stood in front of the mirror and saw the same reflection. But something in his eyes had changed. The desperation was gone. What replaced it was curiosity. He stopped asking, "Why did I lose everything?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift in perspective became his turning point. He began rebuilding not to prove himself, but to rediscover himself. He picked up old habits he'd abandoned, reading, journaling, walking before sunrise. Each small act of discipline reminded him that control doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. At first, the loneliness was unbearable. But slowly, it became sacred. He stopped chasing people who didn't see his worth and started earning his own respect through quiet consistency. When the world ignored him, he worked in silence. When doubt whispered in his ear, he answered it with action. Days turned into weeks. Rejection became less personal, failure less painful. He realized that every loss was sculpting him, removing what was false, revealing what was real. And one morning, as he stood again before that same mirror, he didn't see a broken man anymore. He saw a man reborn through fire, not because life spared him from pain, but because he stopped running from it. Pain became his greatest teacher. It stripped away his illusions, burned through his ego, and left behind something raw but real. For the first time, he understood what the Stoics meant when they said, "The obstacle is the way." Life wasn't punishing him, it was preparing him. He started to notice a pattern. Every rejection, every failure, every betrayal had a lesson hidden inside it. When he was humiliated, he learned humility. When he was abandoned, he learned independence. When he was doubted, he learned self-trust. It was as if life was chiseling him into the man he was meant to be, one scar at a time. He stopped expecting comfort from the world. He no longer begged for validation, no longer feared disapproval. His worth wasn't something others could give. It was something he built daily, through his actions, through his endurance. The same pain that once broke him now became his fuel. When things got hard, he didn't collapse, he leaned in. He didn't ask, "Why me?" anymore. He asked, "What can I learn?" That single shift transformed every setback into an opportunity. He realized that strength wasn't about being untouched by pain, it was about being unchanged by it. The fire no longer scared him, it forged him. He stopped waiting for peace to arrive and started creating it within himself. By facing his pain instead of running from it, he unlocked the quiet power every man seeks, the strength to stand unshaken no matter what the world takes away. He no longer sought to be liked, understood, or praised. The man who once needed the world's approval had vanished. In his place stood someone steady, quiet, unshaken, self-contained. The kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word for people to feel his presence. That's what pain had built. That's what loss had taught him. He learned the discipline of stillness, not the absence of motion, but the mastery of reaction. When someone insulted him, he didn't defend. When opportunities slipped away, he didn't chase. When people left, he didn't beg. He simply observed, accepted, and moved with intention. Because he finally understood, control isn't about the world around you, it's about the world within you. In his solitude, he found clarity. He realized that life doesn't owe him comfort, fairness, or understanding. It only offers him moments, and it's his job to meet each one with strength and grace. The rejection he once feared had become his greatest ally. Each no had refined his focus. Each loss had revealed a deeper truth. The world hadn't turned against him. It had turned him into something greater. A man who no longer flinches when tested, no longer doubts when delayed, no longer breaks when life demands everything. He became the calm in his own storm, the silence in his own chaos, the strength that no one could give and no one could take away. He used to think freedom meant having everything, the job, the love, the recognition. Now he knew the truth. Freedom begins when you no longer need any of it. The man who once begged life to go his way had learned to flow with it. Rejection, loss, and failure weren't curses anymore. They were teachers. Every setback had stripped away an illusion, leaving behind only what was real. He understood now that life is a constant act of surrender. Not giving up, but giving over. Letting go of control, of outcomes, of the need to be understood. That's where peace hides, in the spaces you stop trying to fill. People started to notice something different about him. Not success, not status, but stillness. The kind that can't be faked. He didn't need to talk about strength, he was strength. When life tested him, he didn't ask, "Why me?" He simply whispered, "Try me." That's what the fire had created. A man who could stand alone and still feel whole. A man who no longer feared losing anything because he had already faced loss and survived. He no longer chased love, he became love. He no longer begged for peace, he carried it. And in that stillness, he smiled, not because life was easy, but because he was finally free. Because once a man loses everything false, nothing real can ever be taken from him again.